What is up, everybody? Out on the rocks for another day of crawling. And the first thing I'm driving today is our Enduro CR12, or rather, the CR12 is the old model. This is the Element Enduro12. There's a nasty roll-off, which is confirming some things already. All right, our Element Enduro12. This is going to be, at some point, our Class 0 tire testing platform. Right now, we are still in the test and tune phase, as well as just trying to get some drive time behind the wheel to get used to it, because as you know, I like to really know my testing platforms. I think that's an important part of consistency when I start doing tire reviews, is me really knowing the truck that I'm driving. Our maiden voyage of the Enduro12 didn't go so well. Of course, in true fashion of any RTR, I had swapped the electronics before I ever even drove the truck. The ESC I'm running is a Rhino 40 amp ESC, but we were having some trouble last time with ESC, and it was cutting off and on, power was cutting off and on, and I basically wasn't really able to drive the truck. I ended up finding out with the ESC that the 3-wire connector that goes to your receiver, the ground wire on that was grounding to a capacitor lead. I've actually got a whole video on that, on how I fixed that and everything, but I was able to get that repaired. So today we are kind of doing a second maiden voyage, if you will. So running that Rhino 40 amp ESC, which is now fixed. There's a rollout. Running the Holmes little 380 Outrunner, and currently running the odd size PSR micro servo, mini servo. I don't even know what size it technically is. Excuse me. So today, really we're mostly hanging out. I'm not quite ready to review anything yet. I'll talk about a couple more things that I've learned with the Enduro12 just in working on it. A couple things I already know that I'm going to have to do to it. But ultimately, what I'm doing is getting used to driving it and kind of getting a feel for the suspension, because I think it's going to need some suspension tuning. Right now, I think it's going to need heavier oil. The problem is I don't really know what oil's in these shocks. They are oil-filled shocks from the factory. I have a feeling, knowing Element and knowing just kind of, standard crawler stuff, it's probably somewhere around 30 weight. So I think one of my first next steps in tuning is going to be taking that. See, right here, we're going to get a rollout. I think the rear tire has fallen into kind of a divot there in the rock, and I can tell the front end is upset. We'll see if I can pull out through this slowly. A little bit of ESC tuning needed there too. I think I need to, just a little jittery on the real low end with that Rhino ESC and that Holmes Outrunner. Just need to do a little tuning in the ESC to clean that up. That'll be an easy fix. Okay, so the rollout comes right here on our low line when we get right here. Now, part of this is going to be another thing that I think I need to address, which is the servo. The servo I put in this is an aftermarket servo, but the servo on this truck is a very odd size. And I'll show you everything that I'm going to talk about at the end of this video. We'll take the truck up top, and I'll take the body off, and I'll show you some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about. But yeah, that throttle control, I don't have real slow, creepy low end throttle. It's real jittery right now. Again, this is simple ESC tuning, but we're getting lots of rollout on the side hill. This is suspension tuning. This is largely going to be shock wheel weight, and I leaned the shocks in a little bit. Might need to lean them a little less. Especially on the front end. Servo is very weak. When the weight of the truck, especially with these Proline tires, they're the Baja Pro X class 0 size G8 compound, not exceptionally sticky, but with the weight of the truck and then the stickiness of these tires on sandstone, at least compared to the factory tires, the servo is not strong enough to turn the wheels hardly. Like, that's until the truck is moving. So in the previous driving video, I had talked about how there's a servo mount available for this truck that allows you to run a full-size servo with minimum modifications, no permanent modifications to the chassis. I ordered that. I think in my video I said I thought it was DSM off-road. That was incorrect. I want to make the correction here. I got it from RC Addict is the site I ordered it from. I think it's their servo mount, but I need to confirm that. I'll put a link to it in the description below just so you can be sure, because I want to give proper information on that part. But I've got that on the way. It actually should be delivered here in the next day or two. So once I get that installed, I think we're going to be set for electronics. Well, once I get that installed and do a little bit of ESC tuning to get that slow startup fixed. Another change I made is simply with weight distribution in the battery. In the factory mounting location for this battery is kind of right behind the cab, where the cab meets the bed. I moved it to the front. It is now behind the servo. I don't know that it's going to stay there. We'll see how it does today on the rocks. It might be a little too front bias. You know, when you have extremely lightweight rigs like this, they're really sensitive to weight bias. So I might need to relocate that battery. I'm not going to put it as far back as it was, but I've got another idea of where to put it. See, right now I don't have enough strength in that servo to get off this rock effectively. I can't steer unless I completely unload the weight on that front tire, which makes driving really difficult. But the other thing is, I don't know when I get that new servo mount installed where I have the battery, I don't know if it'll fit. So time will tell with that. We'll see. Again, you're going to see probably 3 or 4 test and tune videos with this rig before I actually do any reviews with it. Because we need to get some things worked out. Obviously, we need to get some things worked out. Just right there on the side hill, the suspension, really bad side hill performance. Now, a lot of this is going to be because, you know, with the little CR12, there's no brass available that I can find for the axles. So we're still going to be finding ways either to put weight down low. Once we get the suspension tuned, we'll know more. Whether I need to put brass rings in the wheels or lead weights or something, you know, we'll figure all that out. All of that is still to come. This is what happens when you want to use an RTR to do testing and crawl, is you deal with the negatives of that RTR. Now, the fun of that is I'm going to get to show you how to make the Enduro12 a decent crawling platform, as good of a crawling platform as it can be. I'm not hopeful that this is going to be just some line slayer. But you'll get to see kind of what I do, what I learn, and how I'm going to make it a better crawling platform, and we'll go from there. But right now, the main thing I was wanting to check today, the thing that I was wanting to do last time that I ran it, was get a feel for the truck and get a feel for what I needed to fix before I can really start driving it. And I knew the suspension was going to be one, because suspension is always something. Suspension is always something when you get an RTR rig, or even when you're building a rig. You know, suspension is something that always needs tuning, always takes some time to figure out. And you could build 2 rigs that are pretty well identical, and the 2 of them might have a little bit different suspension tuning, just because, you know, definitely needs some suspension tuning. This obstacle is proving to give me some problems, and I think I did this without too many problems the first go around when I was having all the trouble with the ESC. Some of this is going to be learning to drive lines with the 12 scale, because it's a lot smaller than tire rack, which is what we normally run. Right now, what I run into is I can get up here, but now I'm hooked on links and axle, and you know, this is going to be the difficulty. If I had servo though, if I had good power in the servo, I would be able to work out of this easier. But we don't have that. We don't have good servo power right now. The servo in here, it's a low PSR servo. There we go. I'm a little annoyed. Not that I think it would have made a big difference. So the servo I ordered, they have two models of this servo. They have, I don't remember the model number. We'll show you that after the drive. But they have a normal model that goes to 6 volts. And then they have a high voltage model that goes to 8.4 volts. I ordered the high voltage model according, I bet you would like to see me, the rig driving, according to, you know, the listing and what I ordered and everything was a high voltage model. What I received was not a high voltage model. It was the normal voltage model, low voltage, if you will, the 6 volt. And I reached out to the seller, and, you know, they were apologetic and they made it right with me on the cost and everything. But ultimately, these are the only ones they have. They don't actually have the high voltage one. The difference is the 6 volt, this is about 110 ounce inches as advertised of torque, whereas a high voltage was going to be 150. So not a massive difference there, really. I don't know, because of that, I don't know that the high voltage would have been in much of an improvement. You know, my initial thought was I probably don't need much with this truck, being so lightweight and everything. I probably don't need a lot of voltage, or sorry, a lot of torque on the servo, which might still be the case. Because just because the servo advertises that it's putting out 110 inches doesn't mean that it is. Pound inches, however they, I can't remember. I'm bad when it comes to like specifications and stuff. I know what I'm talking about, but sometimes I'm bad about talking. Sometimes I'm bad with terminology, is what I'm trying to say. See that jitter right there? So this is just going to be with startup power and what is it? Sino startup, whatever the term is. Again, bad with terminology. This is going to be some pretty easy tuning in the ESC to take care of that jitter. And that jitter only happens at real low throttle, but real low throttle is kind of what I like to crawl at. We are running 4S and the little guy. So my plan is to put that servo mount from RC Addict in here and just get a direct power servo installed. That way I don't have to worry about changing the output on the BEC. That way I don't have to worry about, this is a 3 amp max BEC, which again is fine for the servo that's in here, but for more powerful servo might be pushing it. So I when I was working on the ESC, I went ahead and put a JST lead on here so that I could put a direct power servo. So far, what I'm seeing with the Enduro12 is I need that servo, and I need a little bit of suspension tuning. Right now, I believe that most of the suspension issues can be resolved with shock oil and possibly angling those front shocks a little less. I didn't angle them a lot. I didn't install any aftermarket things to do it. There's several mounting holes on the shock towers for this rig to mount the shocks, and I just tilted them back 1 or 2 places from the factory setting. So I just need to, I think, lean them forward a little bit. Kind of tire racks setup is the rear shocks are angled a lot more than the front, and the front shocks will still unload on steep climbs, but it keeps it from unloading too much. It works out pretty well. So probably just need to try to mimic that a little bit with this little guy. And then thicker shock oil will make the shock respond a little slower, which is my preference. Not necessarily the right way or the wrong way, but it's my preferred way. So I think we'll do that. And then once we get those things worked out, of course, be another test drive, and we'll see what other things are needing to be addressed. So I don't know that I would count on too many Class 0 tire reviews, maybe no Class 0 tire reviews until springtime. We'll see. It's getting to be kind of late in the fall. It's mid-November now for me. And the temperature is still holding out right now, but my opportunities to get out on the rocks are going to be fewer and far between. With, you got Thanksgiving, and then my son's birthday is early December. Then we got Christmas, and my daughter's birthday is early February. And I am starting a new job in 2 days. I put in my resignation a couple weeks ago, and my last day at my old job was Friday. I start my new job here in 2 days, so probably won't be taking days off during the week here until we get through the winter. So I will still be coming out, weather permitting, to do reviews on tires and stuff, but I have a feeling that a lot of the videos through the winter are going to be more of just trailing videos, driving different rock crawlers from the fleet. You'll get to see more trucks from the fleet that you've never seen before, because really all you've seen up until now is pretty much just tire rack. And then, of course, maintenance videos and repair videos, and as much tuning as I can get done here on this little guy, we'll do some videos on that. But as far as actual tire reviews, I don't know that he will be ready to do tire reviews until I get through the winter, because I think there's going to be a fair amount of tuning required. There's not a massive amount of content available on the Enduro12. I mean, it's a weird platform. It's an odd size platform. Obviously you have 10th scale that's super popular, and then you have the 24th and 18th scale that's super popular. But 12 scale, there's just not a lot on it. Not a lot of reason for it to. Well, I shouldn't say not a lot of reason for it to exist. I think this makes more sense than 18th and 24th scale. The mini stuff is what I don't get. Although I did get some mini stuff to start customizing and building, and to offer some reviews on those tiny little 1-inch tires. But here we go. But the 12 scale, in terms of size, I kind of like this size. I prefer 10th scale for me personally still, but I think this is a pretty good size for when 10th scale is a little too large, but you don't need, you're not trying to crawl on a table or something. I think it's a good size, but there's not very many of them out there. And because of that, this is, I don't think, all that popular of a platform. It appears that perhaps it's being clearanced out, which I don't know if that means that, like with the CR12, maybe they've made some changes and something else is coming, or maybe they're discontinuing it. But there's not a lot of aftermarket available for the Enduro12. There's not like brass. So kind of got to work with what we have. One of the comments I had made in my first video of it was I complained slightly. I thought the steering angle wasn't very good. That's because I made a stupid mistake on my servo horn mounting and I didn't mount the steering. Come on. There we go. Just need wheel speed. Then I need to get up here. Also, some of this, guys, keep in mind, I had to choose a set of tires to run. The factory tires with this thing are absolute garbage. And I just didn't think that it would be even worth trying to drive the truck on those tires and fighting the tires. But I don't know that these Pro lines, I don't know how these tires do. So some of the struggles we're seeing might be tire. So part of this test and tuning might be trying a few different tires out and seeing how they do. Kind of an unofficial review of those tires. But like right now, what we're struggling with a little bit is, so we can get up here on the rock, but now we are hanging skid and everything. Like this is rig size. And so part of today and the next few videos, like I said, as I get used to the truck, is going to be learning to drive my course that is mapped out with a 10th scale rig. It's really intended for 10th scale. I would love to be able to drive it with this without any changes, so I just need to make sure that that's going to be repeatable and feasible. And of course, it is not lost on me that there is a possibility that this platform is just not very capable, and because there's not a lot of aftermarket for it, not very modifiable. And you know what I don't like to do, which I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm this master fabricator or anything, but what I don't like to do for my like review platforms, so the trucks that I want to do tire reviews and stuff, I don't want to have something that's got a lot of fabrication, because we're about to check out my weight bias, which, yeah, seems okay on there. I kind of hope I can keep the battery where it's at, but I'm a little skeptical whether I'll be able to with that servo, once that servo mount comes in. That's hard. That's going to be a hard line to drive with a small truck. But at the end of the day, it is entirely possible. I need to watch what I'm doing. It is entirely possible that the Enduro12 is just not going to be capable enough to really run this course and review tires for us reliably. That's a possibility. And if that happens, we will still find a way to review Class 2 or Class 0 tires. Whether it's building a new rig, you know, maybe at that point we should just do a true Class 0 like hard body. But I don't really want to do that, because maybe, I don't know. We'll think about it. Let's get through one thing at a time. Let's see if we can even get up onto our obstacle here. If I can come at it at the right angle, that would be helpful. Still dealing with a lot of suspension tuning, but these weeds right here, which don't cause a lot of issues for tire rack, really are kind of getting in my way. I don't have the weight to just drive over the top of them, and so I need to completely reset. I'm coming at this now all at the wrong angle. But there's still quite a bit we can do to this truck as we do tuning and everything. Like right now it's running the factory plastic links. I can get metal links for it. That'll kind of tighten up some of the steering and some of the suspension geometry some, if needed. Right now it's just very, very top heavy, which is interesting. I mean, it's not the body that weighs anything. We just don't have good center of gravity. Again, a lot of this might be suspension. There we go. That might be hard to repeat. I'm gonna have to spend a lot of time driving this guy. And now some of this stuff, I really don't know how we're gonna do. I think it seems like so far it tends to pitch itself over backwards a lot. So we'll see how we do on some of these steeper inclines. My goal today is to complete the course. We weren't able to do that last time, but that was largely, there we go. That was largely due to our issue with the ESC, and it got to the point to where, so that wire grounding out, the wire would move, you know, I would move it and it would be okay, and then you know, we'd hit a bump or roll over or something and that wire would move just enough to cause issues. So I didn't even end up trying to complete the course. I got annoyed with it and just stopped driving it. But this seems all right. I think we're capable of doing this obstacle. Some suspension tuning notes going into my head. I don't like this. So I'm not going to try to drive out of this just because we're still tuning and I don't see the point needlessly rolling out. Let's give it a little free reset right here. So right here, I can, just with it sitting on the rock, I can see it. That front end's unloaded a lot. And again, this is with that battery mounted up front. Now, there is a chance with the servo mount from RC Addict and a new servo that, you know, that's going to add more weight up front. That servo mount is stainless steel, so it's going to add a little weight, and then a bigger servo. I'm going to run probably a low profile servo but a heavier servo, that's going to add a little bit more weight to that front axle, and it's going to be good unsprung weight. Right now the battery is still sprung weight. But where I have the battery mounted right now, I think is a good location. I really hope I can keep it there, but I'm really not sure I'm going to be able to. I would really, really, really love if they had brass C-hubs and knuckles available for these Enduro12 axles. And just right there at the top. Then we start shuttling passenger side. And now my we start shuttling driver side, and now my driver side rear is kind of on the lip of that this rock. This, though, I don't think this is suspension. This is kind of tire. This obstacle, so as you know, the point of this obstacle is to, most tires have to hook the side lug on the edge of this and walk up with that. Class zeros are going to be hard to do that with because you just don't have a lot of sidewall. And what happens on that obstacle is you get the axle tube hung on the edge of that rock, and then then it just makes it difficult. So that is going to be something that's going to be inherent with just reviewing this tire size. I'm going to try not to make any adjustments to the course today for this truck as time goes on and I drive it more, and especially as I get the truck tuned to where I think it should be. And I get more familiar with how it handles, and I get better at driving it. We might make minor modifications to the course to accommodate the rig, but I don't want to do those at the detriment of the 10th scale stuff, because that's kind of our bread and butter. And full disclosure, there's going to be some bigger stuff. We're gonna start testing 2.2 tires before too long, 5 1/4, and the big boys, the like 5 3/4 size. So, with all of that, I don't really want to make changes to my course. I want all of these rigs to run the same course if applicable. The big guys might have to find a few different obstacles for them, just because some of these obstacles won't even be, well, the one we just went over, the diff hang, this rig was too narrow to get the diff hang, so might have to either rethink that, or maybe I can make like temporary adjustments, or maybe I can find a line that I need to drive to make this do the diff hang. But the bigger ones simply are not going to do it. It's just going to have too much ground clearance, so we'll see when we get there. I've never driven anything bigger than a 10th scale on this course. Okay, so this I'm satisfied with how we're doing. And really, side hilling is where the majority of the suspension tuning needs to take place. And I think that can take place mostly with shock oil. Yeah, this motor holds well. Let's see if we can... Oh, sorry guys. Still working on my recording and driving skills. I should just leave it on one zoom level. So dismounting off this might be challenging with tire rack, with our 10th scale. You always got to get a low wheel speed at the end to keep that diff hang, but this guy, ooh. And right now, settling the front end with my servo is hard because that servo is so weak. It's slow, and I don't have a lot of strength. Don't roll over, don't roll off. I don't want to roll off. Maybe if I correct it this way. Anyway, generating the wheel speed to get past the skid hang up with this guy might be interesting. And right now I'm just in a bad spot in this rock where it's wanting to pick up that front end. This really has little to do with anything other than that passenger side rear tire is in a pretty big divot. Let's just go all the way back down and come back up. Yeah, still some front suspension tuning needs to be done. So right here, this is where it's going to be hard because I'm completely just high centered on the center skid, and the center skid in this truck hangs quite a bit low, below where the body is. There we go. I'm just really going to need to juice the throttle at the end of this obstacle. And right now we're going to take a 35-point turn because of that weak servo. New servo is gonna make this a lot more drivable. It's not too bad if the rig is actually moving, it steers fine. But if it's stopped, or if there's the weight of the rig is sitting on the front axle, I almost get no steering, which I just can't. I just can't. If this was a truck that I was going to drive occasionally, I would be okay with that. So, and maybe for you, if you're interested in the Enduro12, maybe take that into consideration. If it's just a rig you're going to drive around occasionally, I'll link this little PSR servo down because it wouldn't be bad. AGFRC also makes some servos that fit this stock size that I think are actually stronger than the PSR that I have in here. Maybe, even though I do intend on running that full-size servo, maybe I'll get one of those at some point and do a review of one. Gosh darn it. Okay, so here again, we're dealing just with rig size. Another skid hang up. So overall, there's not a whole lot that has to be done here. In terms of tuning, there's not a massive amount that needs to be done. We need to do some suspension tuning. That servo is going to determine whether I can keep my battery where I have it or whether I'm going to need to figure something out for the battery. And if I have to relocate the battery, we'll see what that does to my weight bias. It might not be that big of a deal because I'll have that bigger servo in the servo mount, but we'll see. Links. I think I'll get the metal links for it. I don't know that the plastics are necessarily an issue, but I think I'll get a set of metals, at least while I still can. Because I kind of have a feeling they're discontinuing this platform, but we'll see. But let's check out wheel speed. So we're running a Rhino 40 amp ESC. We're running a Holmes 380 revolver. I think it's a 2000 kV or a 2200 kV. And we're running 4S. Yeah, so not fast. That's about what I want for me. I'm running I believe a 13 tooth pinion. I could afford to run a bigger pinion, but I think this is, for this scale, that's sufficient wheel speed. I'm happy with that. I'll put the GNSS on this at home and just give you a speed, but I mean, we're probably 5 or 6 miles an hour if I had to guess. So what do we think of the Enduro12 so far? I think it's going to be a decent Class 0 rig. There's definitely still some tuning I need to do, but I think it's going to do the trick. I think that we will be good. So let me show you kind of what we're working with so far. And if you have one of these rigs, especially if you've had it for a while and you've done some modifications to it to make it better, let me know what you've done. But so far, this is what I have done. So this is the factory battery location. I'm going to leave that battery tray there because there might be times where I have to use it. This is where the factory electronics go, your factory ESC receiver. I'm going to turn this into, I'm going to put tiny itty bitty 1mm spacers between this to raise it up away from the drive shaft a little bit. And then this will be a second option for battery mounting. Right now, what I have done is I've taken my battery and I've just battery strapped it around this brace, and there's another brace under here. And it's just enough clearance between the battery and that 380 motor. The battery, the strap might rub it slightly on some angles, but it's just the strap. The battery itself has plenty of clearance. I've done that for weight bias. I want to keep it there, but I don't think I'm going to be able to, because once I replace that PSR servo, even with a low profile, a full size servo, I think it's gonna, I don't think it's gonna fit. And to be able to do that, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna fit. I think we're gonna lose. I think we're gonna lose. I think we're gonna lose our battery mounting spot right there. We also have to install that servo, we have to remove this chassis brace that goes back here. So it's just plastic. And I'm not worried about losing the bracing. There's plenty of other bracing here, but the battery does utilize that brace to sit on. So we might get fiddly with the servo. The thing is, that servo mounts to the axle. I might be able to just space the servo forward because there is plenty of room to just move it forward. Maybe I will do that. Maybe I won't have to lose anything. I will. Yeah, we're going to try that. So what we'll try is we are going to cut this probably. We'll cut this bracket, but I'm going to save the portion of it that the battery is sitting on, and then this mounting hole right here, the second mounting hole right behind the shock, I'm going to put another cross brace between there, and then we'll cut in front of that, and we're going to try to just space the servo forward. I've got plenty of room to space that servo forward. That's what we're going to try for our full height servo. The only thing is, I don't know if the factory rail will interfere, so that's kind of my tentative plan. We shall see how that works out. ESC mounting and receiver mounting. So I mess with, I use Kydex a lot for different things. This right here is just Kydex. And Kydex is a great material to work with because it's very lightweight. You can shape it with nothing but a heat gun. And it's pretty strong and it's pretty flexible. And I use it to make battery trays and ESC mounts. I use it instead of aluminum because it's cheaper. It's easier to work with. Anybody can do it at home. You don't need any special tools. You need a pair of scissors or a good like box knife and a heat gun or a lighter so that you can shape it as needed when you need to shape it. But I just cut a few pieces of Kydex there and utilize some factory wire looms and shoved them down in there, and then used E6000 or shoe goo to kind of secure all that in place. So there's that. There's our little Holmes, yeah, it's 2000 kV little outrunner. This is what I'm talking about with the front shocks. I've got them angled back this far. I think I'm going to go one more up on the angle of the shock. Possibly two, probably just one more hole up, and then we'll go thicker shock weight. Now that is gonna increase the way the rig sits a little bit, but with that other servo and everything, although that's gonna be unsprung weight. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I like the way the rig sits, but it won't be bad if it's like up like this a little bit, and I could maybe even, we'll mess with spring weights and stuff at some point. But anyway, that's the Enduro12 as it sits. There's still work to do. There's still tuning to be done. We're still going to do other stuff. There's things I don't like about it. I don't like the shape of the diffs, especially like on the rear, how it's kind of squared off. That's not going to slide very nice. But it is what it is. Maybe at some point I'll take some measurements of these axles and see if I can find aftermarket axles that fit this. Again, if you have this rig or if you're familiar with it, if you know of any good modifications or things to do to increase performance or make it more livable, I'd be interested in hearing it, especially if there are aftermarket axles or anything that you think are better, that slide better. I mean, the pumpkin on these isn't huge, but I would like that to be not like this. You know, there's definitely opportunities for improvement here. From the factory, there are some nubs on either side of the axle. There are steering bumps. I cut those off, but I didn't actually need to. Well, I guess I did because I cut those off to give me even more steering angle. So right now we're limited by the tie rod hitting the diff cover. So I could put a different tie rod on here that is bent. Man, I'm really bad at recording. Tie rod hitting diff cover, because I cut off these, there's steering stops that go on the axle. I just cut those off, The tie rod is our steering angle limiter now. I might put a bent tie rod on it to space that out just a little more to give me more steering angle, but honestly, I think we might be kind of at the limit of what the axles can handle anyway. So you'll see the CR12 again. We'll continue testing, we'll continue tuning, we will continue making it better until it is ready to run tire tests on a reliable and consistent basis. Till next time, everybody, have a good one.